Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Sally Carruthers, and I welcome you to our second quarter client webinar. We're going to talk about how you can help credit union members and give advice on what they may want to do to increase the value of their homes and thus the sale price of their homes. Just a couple of housekeeping items. Everyone on the webinar is muted. I will give my email address at the end of the webinar, and if you have any questions, please contact me. So you can hear me, I can't hear you. I usually take somewhere around 45 minutes for the webinar. Sometimes it goes to an hour, but I try to make it as painless and quick as possible. And so I'm going to caveat this. This is something I taught or talked to a lot of credit unions about some years ago, a few years ago. Obviously, markets have changed, especially in the last couple of years, and literally someone puts a house on the market and it sells, and usually it doesn't actually matter what someone's done to it. There has been considerable increases in value. A lot of people have a lot of equity in their home. This is likely to change. I think we already see some signs of the market slowing, and I have no doubt that, you know, at some point, maybe next year, maybe later this year, we will go back to a more traditional type of real estate market that where someone puts a house on the market for a month or so, a couple of months, sometimes 6 months, and they're competing with other homes directly, and we've increased the supply of available homes. So you're competing, or your members will be competing against other homes for buyers. And that's where these tips really become important because they help to kind of make someone's house shine a little bit more, and therefore I think will make somebody probably pay more. Right now, what someone is willing to pay for a home is really, just really influenced by the supply of homes right now available for any buyer. So I'm going to give you that caveat that, you know, we're looking in the future as things start to change. So, keeps on repeating my name here. What are the objectives here? What I want to be able to do is provide you some meaningful advice so that you can give your credit union members who want to maximize their sales price under current market conditions. So we're talking about, you know, what is going on now and what's going on in the future. So one thing I really want to talk about before we go anywhere, and I know that you guys are all educated mortgage professionals, and I think you get this, but it's a great saying in appraisal kind of 101 that cost does not equal value. And in appraisal methodology, we're going to talk a little bit about appraisal methodology, that there are very clear definitions and distinctions between cost and value. The thing about value is that it's an opinion, and it's a monetary relationship between properties and those who buy, sell, or use those properties. It is what's known as an economic concept. The economic concept is very important because it is never a fact. It is always an opinion. Cost actually is a fact. Cost is the amount of money required to create, produce, or obtain a property or part of a property. And cost is either a fact or an estimate of fact. You have an estimate of cost that something may cost to build. With that consideration, what is also really important is the time factor relative to your return on the original investment. How long are you willing to take to be able to get a return on what you're putting into a property? So if you decide to remodel the kitchen, how long will it take you to recoup the cost of doing that? Because I can tell you it won't be instant. It may take some time. So time is always a factor in this when you start thinking about what someone can do to a property to increase the value. There is a very interesting kind of website. I'll click on it here. Well, I thought I clicked on it. And it shows by area the different and overall, the different relative costs and the percentage that you can recoup on the cost of an item. So it's quite an interesting thing to see, and I would kind of recommend you look at it. I don't know how accurate it is. Sorry, I've lost you in my, let me put my PowerPoint back up. But I think it's certainly interesting. You'll see there, and everyone I say this to kind of laughs at it. They don't believe me, but one of the best kind of investments that a person can make to improve the value of their property is new garage doors, and garage doors actually have a huge return on their on the investment on them. So I always think that that's something people don't think about, especially actually if you put the windows into those garage doors. We will talk about that. So those are some kind of things I just want to say right up front about cost versus value, the amount of return that you're going to get, the importance of time in that too. So I want to go through some individual items and kind of discuss them, and relative to what you're going to, by doing this to a property, what you're going to get and how to go about it, and then kind of come up with some conclusions on some best practices for your members as they look to market their home or sell their home. So one of the things that is really can really add value to a property is to add square footage, to actually add that footage. But you have to be careful because you have to determine what actually constitutes square foot. And as an appraiser, what we look at is it heated, finished, legal? Is there sufficient headroom? Is it above grade? Not that it matters. You can increase floor area by finishing a basement. It's just that it won't be counted in that above ground square foot, but it still has value. And you know, consider where you're going to put that additional square foot. One of the things that commonly I see is people who convert garages to a den or a family room or something else. Well, that's all very well. Some people do a really nice job of it. And often people will kind of keep those garage doors on the outside because they want to be, you know, a potential buyer to be able to convert it back. But if you do it permanently and you get a permit to do it, consider that you are losing something very valuable in the property, and that's the garage. So often the addition of, you know, maybe 400 extra square foot, or in a one-car garage, 220 square foot, something like that, is not going to net enough additional value that you would lose from eliminating the garage. So I would say that if that's what you want to do, you need to have room for a garage. Because a garage is obviously something that the majority of buyers are looking for and has a lot of value. The other thing that really is important is how you utilize the square foot. And it's a very popular thing in older homes, for example, kind of traditional 100-year, 200-year kind of two-story homes is to put a rear addition and then another story above it. And it really does add an incredible amount of value to the property, often because it's an older home. It doesn't have a master bedroom and bathroom, so you're able to add that, and then you're able to add a separate family room on the back. And it's very much, it may be expensive to do, but it has a very large dollar return for it. However, there are other things that you could do that may not have such a good return. And sometimes, making an individual room bigger doesn't get you that much of a return. But if you could add in an office, for example, that might have more value. So we have to also consider how that additional square foot is going to be used. And then again, the functional utility. If you put in an addition and put a new kitchen in there, how far away is that kitchen from everything else? Or if you're going to add an additional bedroom, are you also going to add another bathroom to that? And as I said, if you finish your garage, are you going to have a garage instead of that? And then determining how many stories there are. And what is also extremely important when you add square footage to a house is the level of finish. It has to be at least consistent with, if not superior, to what is already in the home, especially if it is an older home. You would expect that the new home has decent quality a decent quality addition. I mean, so often we see partially finished basements or partially finished attic areas or something like that, or someone finishes an area but doesn't add heating and cooling to it. So it really must be consistent with the rest of the house. But a good thing to do if you want to add value to a property. One of the really great ways and very expensive ways to add value to a property, and you can advise your client, your members on this, is to upgrade the curb appeal. And as I said, one of the best ways to upgrade your curb appeal is to add a new garage door. There is something extremely refreshing about a new garage door, especially when you put windows in it. And I think the return is like 90-something% on the investment. For some reason, a steel front door is you get a lot of return for that. Little things, updating the mailbox, landscaping. A huge thing is power washing. For probably less than $5,000, maybe only a couple of $1,000s, you can have a property professionally power washed and it will look new, especially with some paint. So plant some trees, perhaps put some annuals in, window boxes, flowers, all these things to increase the curb appeal. And again, paint. The secret of all of this is there is only one thing that you can do to a piece of property that will always get 100% return on your investment, and that is paint. And we're going to talk a little about that. So yes, upgrading your curb appeal, really making your house look better than the house next door or the one down the street. Updating the exterior, again, this is making the property look, newer and cleaner and better than what it's in competition with down the road. So that might include adding a deck or patio, or at least finishing staining the deck, or taking all the weeds out the patio, something like that. Recently, you know, especially with COVID and kind of post-COVID, there's been a lot of promotion of what they call the front porch experience. Excuse me, I'm sorry, my dogs are barking. The front porch experience. This is talking of front porches. Yes, talking of front porches. So the front porch experience, that is a you know, adding a front porch and maybe adding some flowers to that and a couple of seats, and people like to kind of watch their neighbors go past and talk to them and that kind of thing. It's become a really kind of important part of the exterior of your home. Adding a fire pit or a fireplace to your back deck or back patio, and something that very kind of more recently that has become very popular are outdoor kitchens. Again, these are things that don't have to be terribly expensive, but can add value to the property and certainly make it more marketable to someone looking at it. Pools. I would have said 5 years ago, never put in a pool, especially if you're in kind of the Midwest or somewhere like that. I say they don't. I mean, I have appraisers who actually think that they don't add any value to a property. They actually take away value. Again, this is something that has really changed with COVID and people working from home and being more staying in their homes. And I guess now, if you want an in-ground pool, you have to wait 18 months maybe to have it put in. So pools have become increasingly more popular, and because of the efficiency of pools now, they're easier to clean, they're easier to heat, and they can be used a lot more frequently than they used to. In Florida and those areas, you have screen pools, screen coverings. So there's so much kind of technology around that now that a pool has become something very popular. And I think with that, you're going to see a better return on your investment on a pool. Again, said again, on updating the exterior, paint it. Very important. Kitchens. There is a great myth around kitchens. People think if I was to ask them, how do I increase the value of my home? Oh, I put a new kitchen and a new bathroom in. No, you don't, not necessarily. Because kitchens can be a big money pit. They can cost you an awful lot of money to remodel a kitchen. And they see you coming, the guys that do this. So it can be very, very expensive. Having said that, there are things that your members could do to their kitchens that would increase, I think, the marketability of a home and make it look better. One easy thing to do and very inexpensive, you can go down to Lowe's and get these. They have very nice ones at Lowe's and Home Depot and all those places, is to kind of switch out the kitchen fixtures, the faucet, the drawer knobs, the pulls, the things like that. These should be modern. They should be pretty, look recent, not like they're back in the 1970s or something. So that's a very, very inexpensive way of increasing how the kitchen looks. I think if you have older kitchen appliances and they're not eco-friendly and they're some weird color or something, I think your member should really consider switching out or updating those kitchen appliances. Of course, though, that's something that still is impacted by supply chain issues, so may not always be possible. But I think kind of nice, inexpensive, perhaps stainless steel kitchen appliances could make a really big difference. Another thing that really is kind of expected, and if it's expected by buyers, I think it should be considered, and that's newer kitchen countertops, especially now the quartz ones, which are very clean and white and nice looking. I think there isn't always a need to rip out every part of the kitchen. You can paint or replace kitchen cabinets, the fronts. Adding a kitchen island if there is room is really important. Remember that your member, when they're thinking of selling their home, they're not just in competition with the house down the street, they're also in competition with new homes. And you rarely see a new home that doesn't have a kitchen island. And the real reason they've replaced the nook where we used to have a little kitchen table, and to the point that people aren't having dining areas as much, and I think it adds more intimacy to the kitchen. And so a kitchen island is kind of a must almost, but a lot of homes don't have room for that, but I think if you do, it's pretty important. And again, go back, paint, 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 paint. Floor coverings. This one is an important one. You have to have decent floor coverings. And I have the nice picture, obviously you realize I have dogs now, of the dog and cat. The worst things that happen, these, although they're lovely, are actually the worst things that ever happen to floor coverings. So be very aware that with floor coverings come smells too. And people's first impression of a house is often with their nose. And so if you do have, carpets, clean them if necessary. You don't have to replace them. I would say that if you have a lot of carpeting and it's not great carpeting, and the member thinks that they might be replacing it, consider some kind of wood flooring. It doesn't have to be absolute hardwood. There are lots of kind of hardwood alternatives and fairly inexpensive. And there's a preference probably still to have carpet in bedrooms and on staircases. But if there is pet damage, you really should consider a replacement. One thing that's extremely popular now is concrete flooring. Finally, appraisers actually are including concrete flooring as floor area. That actually in an old version of our measuring standards wasn't included, although appraisers did consider it. Consider what the cost of replacing floor coverings and whether it may be necessary. It is an important thing for a first impression, but also if your member has really decent carpeting, high quality carpeting, and you get a high quality carpet cleaner in there, it can make a world of difference. So, but if that carpet has been stained by those two in the picture, you really should consider removing it, and because those buyers are going to find out. So that's my 2 cents. I tend to personally, I prefer the hardwood over carpet, but I think that other people may be different. It is a kind of preference, and sometimes it's geographic. if you're down in Florida or you're in Arizona, you probably think different from Ohio or Michigan. There are different kind of thoughts on that. If you are going to expose the original concrete and have it finished and polished, that can work, but could be expensive too. So there are some different alternatives, but really kind of be wary, because this can be an open checkbook. It can cost a lot of money, and you may not, your member may not need to do that. So here's my 2 cents for you guys. This is really, really important. Paint. There's an old saying, it's an old Navy saying that says, if it moves, salute it. If it doesn't move, paint it. Before your member sells their house, they should go around the entire property and, where possible, paint. The cost of the paint will come back in spades. It is such an important part of it. I know that wallpaper is making a little bit of a comeback. I hate wallpaper, but that's okay. That's my personal preference. Which is fine. And I think especially if you do it as an accent wall or whatever, but make sure, most people prefer the neutral colors. Make sure it is neutral and be consistent. If you're gonna paint one room blue, you make some shade of blue, probably want to kind of be consistent with it. Make sure, very important, you touch up any areas of chipped or missing paint. If you have an older house that potentially has lead-based paint, that needs to be removed and repainted. That's really important. So that will come up in an inspection. But again, paint is still, relatively inexpensive. And if you want to, if your member is willing to do it themselves, this really can enhance the value of a property. So HVAC, not a big one. I'm not sure that if a member would really need to replace the HVAC unless it is really old and it's really struggling, and goes out every, when the temperature gets to 95 degrees, or when it gets to freezing or something like that. Obviously, there is going to be a preference for something that is energy efficient. Your member's house will be marketed on there will be a cost of utilities and that kind of thing. So having an energy efficient system is really important, and making sure that you have that your member has a service history is very important too. One thing, go back to that kind of living area thing, the entire house must be heated and cooled. So you can't have heating and cooling in one part and not the other. And it must be a permanent heat source. So that's really important. An important thing for your member to consider is that the system should be cleaned and look nice. A grimy furnace or a hot water heater or an outside air conditioning unit that's covered with weeds or whatever it is can be a bit of a red flag and put off a potential buyer. So just making sure that that furnace looks clean, looks good, that there aren't any exposed wires, and it's not hidden by, if it's an air conditioning unit, not hidden by weeds or anything like that, is really important. But I would say, if your member has an older system and it does kind of chug along, but not chug along well and have a lot of band-aids on it, consider replacing it, because chances are that an inspector is going to figure out that. They're going to test it to see if it's working and it's cooling and heating yeah, at the right amount. So probably just something that I see more than anything and gets called out by inspectors are heating and air conditioning systems. So important. Bathrooms. Bathrooms are not terribly expensive to really look good. And I think that there's a lot of validity to doing some bathroom work that isn't terribly expensive. One thing is to replace those old toilets. You know, a low flow unit really, you know, works better. Updating vanities, and again, that's something that can be done pretty inexpensively, especially if your member is pretty handy and can do a lot of stuff on their own, or is really interested in looking at YouTube videos for a long time. Consider walk-in showers versus baths. Baths are really out. And let me tell you, if something has a shower and not a bath, it's still a full bath from our standpoint, from an appraiser standpoint. But I think that baths, and that's I think in an area where a family area, baths are still important to people with children. But once those kids are old, I don't think the bathtub gets used much more. You know, some bath remodels are fairly inexpensive, and I think that they can have value in you know, for a member doing some work here. Really, what it is again, if their property is in competition with another one and it's got an old grimy old bathroom that looks nasty and horrible, and there's nasty kind of bathtub and whatever it is, yeah, that's going to put off a buyer. And they're not going to pay as much money. So, you know, for less than $5,000, you may be able to remodel that bath and certainly make it look a lot more viable. Consider floor coverings again. These don't have to be something really expensive. Ceramic or whatever is not something as expensive. And you know, something I don't know if, you know, maybe kind of a marketing tool for you guys. You know, I think that right now so many homeowners have a lot of equity in their homes, and I do think that, you know, small equity line would help a lot of people be able to put their houses into a really marketable kind of condition to be able to see it, sell it, and I don't think they're going to be upside down because they tapped into their equity. But I, you know, again, I can sell that for you guys if you want, but that's your job. So, but some of these things I think do make, you know, are quite important. Windows. Windows are really important. And again, this goes to the aesthetics of the house. If it is really important that if the current windows are outdated, damaged, drafty, they should be replaced, and it will increase the value. So I think that windows are important. It improves curb appeal. Most importantly, it gives the impression of a well-maintained and updated house. We're going to talk about this idea of well-maintained and updated, and I think that it does. And again, obviously increases energy efficiency, but you know, are you just going to replace the windows right before you sell? This time and cost are really important. So I don't know if your members are going to want to kind of like say they have to replace the windows before selling the house, unless they are damaged and drafty and don't work and that kind of thing. But it is a major deal in a home, and there is an expectation that these should be well kept, well maintained, and in working order and energy efficient. The roof. The other thing apart from the HVAC unit is the roof. The roof gets called out a lot in inspections. And I would say if you're advising your member, have them get a roof inspection, especially if there's been some storms in the recent times. Often these roofs have some storm damage that can be traced back to a storm, especially, I mean, many areas. And obviously the roof replacement will be covered under a homeowner's insurance, and if I have to pay a deductible, but I think, you know, if the roof is older, yeah, that's going to really be an issue. Now, not just the age of the roof, but how it looks. There's some really ugly roofs, especially some of them where they've just added, you know, asphalt onto the top of them. So those really should be considered. Now, again, supply chain issues and everything. If your member has an issue with a roof, you know, they really need to consider the time to get that replaced or repaired, because those roofers are so behind right now, and that'll be even more so, you know, when there are storms and that kind of thing. So, but the roof is really important. It should not be damaged. It should not need to be fixed. And some money invested in a good roof is really important. Having said that, you know, if they're going to go off and spend $30,000 on a new roof because there is an issue with it, then probably not going to get $30,000 back. There is an expectation that a roof should be, you know, well maintained and kept up, and if there is storm damage, that should have been addressed, and that type of thing. So often what I have seen is when it gets called out for an inspection, it's usually, you know, ends up because it gets called out because there's storm damage, and then it's usually taken care of with the homeowners association. So yeah, good idea for your members to get their roofs looked at to make sure they are in good order and haven't been damaged in any storms. Laundry rooms, they are very important, and accessibility, and ensure, best bit of advice, they're clean and tidy. Oh my gosh, I've seen some laundry rooms piled full of clothes and laundry detergent and goodness knows what. They're not just kind of, they should be clean and tidy, everything's stacked nicely. And you know, consider stacking the washer and dryer too. It gives it a lot more space. Laundry rooms are often used for storage, so storage space. One of the kind of neatest things I've seen is shelving. A lot of shelving in a laundry room. Pretty inexpensive to add shelving to a laundry room, and but consider where it is. Some people love second floor laundry rooms, especially families and that type of thing. I can kind of get that. And it's not a bad thing. You know, maybe relocate a laundry room if that's possible. But again, clean, tidy, areas for storage, accessibility is very important. So I don't know, you don't want your laundry room way away from, you know, the bedrooms and bathrooms and that kind of thing, where people have to kind of lump around a whole bunch of dirty laundry or whatever. So important. And if a house doesn't have a laundry room, again, when you add square foot, consider putting that in. So very important. Smart features. We have increasingly become aware of smart features. They are marketed accessibly in new homes. In new homes, there is an expectation for them. And I think we're starting to see this in existing homes, even older homes. And a lot of kind of stuff comes with it. Now you get appliances that are energy efficient and programmable. Thermostats are programmable, security systems, sometimes security cameras. A video doorbell has become a must. Audio-visual equipment, all these smart features are that they can be operated from a cell phone or anything else. And some of them are just not terribly expensive to do. Some of them are very expensive to do. You want a really good audio-visual system, you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. And your member is not going to get that back. But oh, I don't know, $100 on a video doorbell, maybe. You know, consider again, these are all going to be available in new homes and more so now in existing homes. Energy efficiency, again, this is something that over the last few years has become even more important, and I think it's because, especially during the COVID years, people are spending more time at home. I talked about heating and cooling units, windows, doors, and siding, lighting, energy efficient appliances, and even solar panels. I don't advise any of your members to go running off and purchase or lease solar panels to think you'll sell your house quicker. You won't. I think they're a good thing if that's something that someone is looking at to be able to maximize savings on their home, but it's not going to add dollar for dollar. Again, it has now become expected that windows and doors, lighting, appliances, heating and cooling are all energy efficient. So if a home doesn't have that, it just becomes less marketable in competition with someone else. Would you get dollar for dollar increases on value by putting some of these in? Maybe not, unless you're replacing really old systems or old windows. But if that's the case, your member's going to need to replace them with energy efficiency, and that becomes important. Staging. See, this is something you may not have been expecting. I'm just saying, a big believer in staging. I once taught this class. Well, I actually did a seminar for potential home sellers for a credit union, and I did it with a stager, and it was quite incredible what they can do. PubRealtor.com, they say that staged homes sell 88% faster and for 20% more than non-staged homes. The only thing is it's very expensive. The initial consultation is not bad. That's probably up to $600. But to stage a home costs $500 to $600 per month per room. which is pretty darn expensive. Where I think staging is incredibly beneficial is in an empty house. I mean, you got nothing in there. So probably, and that's what makes that staging so expensive, because they have to put in everything. You know, they buy towels, they put in rugs, they probably have their own furniture that they pop in there. But, you know, there's a lot of items and knickknack things that go into that staging that make it really kind of expensive to do. Now, having said that, I think that a homeowner, your member, could stage a home. I think it is possible to do that. I think it would be a good idea to get a consultation from a stager and see what they say, or maybe do some research. There's all kinds of stuff out there on the internet, YouTube videos, and goodness knows what, that taking some time to do that research could be very, very important and help to do. So that again is time. You got to do that research, but a lot of it is about clutter and getting rid of the clutter. I always tell the story of when my kids were young and I was selling my house, and I would keep laundry baskets. And as soon as someone said that the house was going to, my realtor called, said, the house is going to be showing, Sally, this afternoon, I'd throw everything, the toys, the crap, everything into the laundry baskets and throw them in the back of the van. And it worked. But I think that's a lot of it. And I go with, you know, cleaning the house, having a really good professional clean. I think you're definitely going to get your members will get a really good return on that. But staging, good idea if it's an empty house, if your member has to move, you know, before their house is sold. And then I think get a consultation, but, you know, have your member roll up their sleeves and do some of it themselves, because it can be done, and it can really, really help to maximize the sale price on a home. So I'm a big believer in staging. With that, I'm related to that, I think, is a whole house organization, and that is everything. Closets, because people are going to open closets, doors, drawers, pantries, work surfaces, decluttering the garage. Don't forget the garage. The garage has to be done, and the yard. Getting rid of all the weeds and making sure all the edges are trimmed, and that kind of, the trees are trimmed and bushes are trimmed, and those kind of things, that the house, the outside of the house looks neat and organized. And it doesn't have to be perfect. A house is lived in, but the ability to organize it and make it, you don't have to alphabetize the spice cabinet or do anything like that. But I think that showing that the house is capable of being organized and uncluttered is really important. And because it usually makes the house look bigger. And again, that's one of the things with having a house staged, you know, the advantage is to make it look bigger. And when you have things that are removed off work surfaces, and you have a tidy pantry, and the drawers are crammed full of stuff, the house looks bigger. And that's a very important concept for potential buyers. Just taking that time to do that can be really, really important. So maintenance. This, outside of the painting, is probably the most important thing for a potential seller to do, and make sure that they have done, hopefully, through the time that they've owned the property. But if you're going to tell your members anything, it's that the house has to look well maintained. So things like or things to consider: the gutters, getting all the gunk out of the gutters, window screens, making sure none of those are damaged or torn or anything like that, that floors are clean and swept, and you know, and that type of thing, and uncluttered too. That people are going to trip over things when they walk through. As I said before, power washing the house can be really important. Decks and patios and porches have to be well maintained too. Their roofs and anything else on them has to look good. Important weed. Take all the weeds up. Something I didn't mention here, but just adding mulch is really important. Nice clean mulch to all the flower beds would be very important, and you're probably going to get your money back. Obviously a mowed yard, and clean, and again, I go there again, paint. So some conclusions out of this. I think I am a little bit over 45 and 50 minutes, but as I have reiterated time and time again, there is only one item that you're going to get back 100% value. Your member should paint the house if needed. And then I think the next thing is probably that the house is well maintained. Just to walk around and make sure, you know, if paint is chipped a little bit, touch it up. If the dog scratched at the back door, make sure you paint over it. Make sure the windows are clean, and gutters are free of gunk, and the HVAC units look clean, and there's not weeds around them. So maintenance is and often that's just hard work to do. I mean, that's physical work. It's not actually having to spend any money. It is about just doing it, pulling up, you remember, pulling up their sleeves and doing it. Remember that first impressions are important. Don't all buy a house by what they see in the first 5 minutes. Some of them buy a house without even looking at it, but that's another story. So first impressions are really important. Consider staging, either homegrown staging or, you know, I think in certain things. One thing I should have said, well, actually, I'm going to come to it, is consider what the price level is and the location, because there are different expectations in different locations, and your member's price range. There's a different expectation of $1 million house versus a $200,000 home. A lot of these things run true for everything, but location and price make a big difference. Also, age of the home and the expectations of that, and what that can, you know, in a 100-year-old home, you're not going to be expected to do the same as a 10-year-old home. So I think that becomes really important. And I think probably a really good piece of advice for your member would be that, you know, an expensive remodeling just may not pay off. Often the things that are going to pay off are what they can do themselves, or learn to do, or perhaps, you know, can be fixed fairly inexpensively, you know, either, you know, with a line of credit or something like that, you know, maybe a little bit of investment, but it doesn't have to break the bank. So, but it will, you know, be important for them. So that really is it. Here is my email address. Please send me an email. This is recorded. It will go up on our website. So if you want to, a link to it, it actually goes up on, is hosted on YouTube. Please share it with your members. If you would like, send me an email. I can do one specifically that is addressed to your members. So, hey, we'll do the same thing, but we'll just address it to whatever credit union you're in and to the members. The other thing, as people start thinking about selling homes, I would be more than open to come in and talk to some of your members about this. Anything to help you guys and assist in that. I am not a realtor. I'm an appraiser, so my interest is the value side of it. So when I talk about this, it's what I see as being of value, rather than kind of anything else that a realtor may think. So I thank you all for being here this afternoon. I apologize for my dogs. And if you couldn't join us on Tuesday, I apologize for that too. We actually got notification that the internet services were going down 20 minutes before we started the webinar. So thank you very much, and we will talk later.